On the day Grace and I got engaged, her childhood sweetheart jumped off a seaside cliff, even leaving behind a suicide note online. "If you marry him, I'll punish you by making you lose me forever." Yet when faced with the media's cameras, Grace still took my hand and smiled gently. My heart swelled with joy. I even started dreaming about our future together. But just 3 days later, Grace, the ever-composed physics professor, chose to follow him in death. On the day I proposed to her, the famous singer Justin leapt from a 1,000-foot cliff. He left Grace a final letter. "If you marry him, I'll punish you by making you lose me forever." An anonymous person posted the letter online, sending shockwaves across the internet. Netizens immediately dug into Justin's past and discovered that throughout his short but dazzling life, there had always been one woman who loved him fiercely, who never left his side. In the end, their love was doomed by the gap in their social status. And that woman? Very likely my fiancée, Grace. When Grace heard the news, I was just about to slip the engagement ring onto her finger. But at that exact moment, reporters swarmed the venue, storming straight into our engagement ceremony. Sharp questions rang out. "Professor Grace, have you seen Justin's final letter? What was your relationship with him?" Camera flashes exploded like strobes. Lenses locked onto Grace, desperate to catch even a flicker of emotion on the face of the renowned physicist. But she remained calm and replied simply, "I've seen it. Justin and I had absolutely no relationship." Reporters pressed harder. "But some say you and Justin were once lovers. Your love story reads like a novel. A classic tale of star-crossed heirs from powerful families. What do you say to that?" Worried, I squeezed her hand tighter. This was my 10th year with Grace, and I'd finally gotten my answer. I found the whole thing absurd. Stepping in front of the cameras, I smiled and said firmly, "We don't know any Justin. My fiancée Grace and I have been together for 10 years. Today is our engagement day. Please stop spreading baseless rumors." Then I turned to Grace, full of hope, waiting for her to confirm my words. She lowered her lashes slightly, her gaze steady. "That's right, I'm getting married." Slowly, she slid the ring onto her left ring finger, right there in front of the entire press corps. She kissed me softly on the lips, her usually cool eyes suddenly brimming with tenderness. "Logan," she whispered, "after tonight, your wish will come true." In that moment, I truly believed that my years of unrequited love for Grace had finally blossomed into something real. But 3 days later, the ever-dignified Professor Grace chose to die by suicide. When I found her, she was lying in a pool of blood in her office. Eyes closed, face peaceful, as if asleep. A deep gash ran across her wrist, down to the bone. Blood trailed down her arm, soaking the carpet crimson. I pressed my hands over the wound, sobbing as I called for an ambulance. The doctors said she still had a faint pulse. She needed emergency care immediately. From her blood-soaked shirt, they found an old, worn bracelet. When the nurse handed it to me, a hollow emptiness opened up inside my chest. Because that bracelet wasn't mine. Even worse, that very night, photos of Grace in emergency care, along with a close-up of that bracelet, somehow leaked online. Netizens quickly noticed that the bracelet's design closely resembled the ring Justin always wore on his left ring finger. Old rumors from days earlier resurfaced, and the internet erupted once again. That night, no one paid any attention to me, the man reeling from shock. My clothes were soaked in blood, yet reporters swarmed me outside the hospital, shouting questions in my face. Why did Professor Grace slash her wrists? Was it because of Justin? Is that bracelet their love token? My whole body trembled. I fought to hold back the emotions threatening to break me, and managed to say, "Tonight was just an accident. I'm her fiancé. Please stop bringing up people who have nothing to do with this." But the story still rocketed to the top of trending searches. The hashtag, "Who says tragic love is a thing of the past," dominated the charts. Finally, thanks to the netizens' relentless digging, long-buried clues began to surface. Grace had been spotted in the audience at nearly every one of Justin's concerts. Publicly, they'd never crossed any lines. But Justin's bracelet and Grace's earrings were clearly matching pieces from a couple's jewelry set. Even more damning, Grace's personal belongings occasionally appeared in Justin's candid photos. Sometimes in the morning light, sometimes in the dead of night. This only deepened public belief that the two had shared a secret, passionate love affair, hidden from everyone's eyes. Within a single night, fanfiction flooded the internet. Writers spun tender, poetic tales of a star-crossed romance bathed in moonlight and longing. And me? I became the villainous side character, the cruel interloper who tore them apart. Netizens tore me apart. Grace loved Justin her whole life. What right does Logan have to marry her? It's obviously just an arranged marriage for status. Even someone as brilliant and accomplished as Professor Grace couldn't escape a family-arranged union. A famous singer still couldn't cross the Ramsey family's threshold. How pathetic. Some even sneered. Logan, see now? This is the world you wanted. Hatred and cruel words poured in from every corner of the internet. I just sat numbly by Grace's hospital bed, terrified and helpless. My few feeble attempts to defend us were quickly drowned in a sea of vitriol. All I could do was pray she'd wake up soon, because I had so many questions only she could answer. But before I could even hear her explanation, another bombshell dropped. Justin, who'd always claimed to be single, had a 5-year-old daughter. When I heard the news, my whole body went cold. I looked up, dazed, and when I saw the photo of the little girl, it felt like a sledgehammer smashed into my skull. Her eyes were exactly like Grace's. In those few seconds, all the noise around me faded into a dull, ringing hum. The steady beep, beep of the heart monitor filled my ears as I bowed my head, plunged into despair. Was that little girl Grace's child? And if she was, what was I supposed to do? Become the man who destroyed someone else's family? After a week in a coma, Grace finally woke up. She calmly insisted it had all been an accident. But I, after days of torment, was utterly broken, body and soul. Grace, I said, voice raw, I need an explanation, one that makes me believe you. She looked at me with those beautiful eyes and whispered gently, I'm sorry for making you worry. Everything else, she refused to answer. As for those baseless rumors, the very day after she woke up, they vanished without a trace. Her explanation was simple. I'll give my husband the dignity he deserves. Those were the exact words I'd been waiting to hear all along. In that moment, exhaustion and relief crashed over me at once. I gripped the front of my shirt tightly, and the crumpled medical report I'd meant to show her remained balled up deep in my pocket. I was sick, but I hadn't gotten the chance to tell her yet. Yet right then, I suddenly realized it didn't matter anymore whether I told her or not. Grace returned to her usual calm, gentle self. She always put me first, giving me every ounce of public respect and honor. Friends often teased me. Saw your photo on Professor Grace's desk again today. Now the whole campus knows. You two are the perfect match, brilliant man, stunning woman, made for each other. But I knew the truth. It wasn't like that at all. She treated me with such formality, like I was a stranger. Except for that one time when she'd been drunk. My friends tried to reassure me. She respects you, that's a good thing. Don't be ungrateful. Just wait until after the wedding, you'll see. Everyone assumed I was suffering from pre-wedding jitters, and kept calling to offer advice. At the end of one such call, a friend suddenly remembered something. His voice laced with concern. Logan, are you sick? I heard Professor Grace took emergency leave tonight and went to the hospital. I froze. That can't be. Just minutes ago, Grace texted me, saying she had to work late tonight. How could she have taken leave? There was a pause on the other end. She left in such a hurry. I even thought it was because of you. Grace had been devoted to her research for years. Rain or shine, she'd never taken a day off for anyone. Something felt deeply wrong. I fumbled in my pocket, pulled out a hospital address someone had sent me, and rushed to hail a cab. It was the hospital where Justin's daughter was being treated. The little girl already had kidney disease and relied on dialysis to survive. Maybe Grace had known about the child all along. I remembered, shortly after Grace woke from her coma, Lucas Ramsey had come rushing to see her, whispering something I couldn't hear. For the first time, Grace's lips had curved into the faintest smile, a rare, vivid expression on her usually stoic, restrained face. From that day on, she stopped being withdrawn. After Lucas Ramsey left, Grace suddenly took my hand and said, "Logan, from now on, let's live well. Don't worry. Nothing unexpected will happen again." That night, in the dim, hushed hospital corridor, I walked quickly, cold sweat soaking my back. As I passed a few nurses, their conversation drifted to my ears. That was terrifying. I nearly lost Olivia. Her poor father. Thank goodness his wife got here in time. My head exploded with a deafening boom. Dizziness, ringing ears. Olivia's father, Justin, was still alive. The horrifying truth slammed into me. I hurried toward Olivia's room. Around the corner, I saw them. Two figures locked tightly in each other's arms. That single moment became a blade, plunging straight into my heart, stealing my breath with unbearable pain. Grace and a man, lost in a feverish, desperate kiss. I'd never seen Grace so unrestrained. She clutched his head fiercely, and the man himself seemed shaken by her intensity. "Grace," he murmured, voice breaking, "I can't fight your family. As long as Olivia can live safely, I'm willing to let you go." A faint flush crossed his otherwise cold face. In the dim light, I recognized him clearly. It was Justin. He hadn't died after all. Grace's eyes overflowed with emotion. She cupped his face, her voice hoarse. "Why did you lie to me, Justin? Did you want to watch me die?" Justin's lips trembled like a frightened fawn. "Lucas Ramsey forced me." Grace gently smoothed his disheveled hair, soothing him. "It'll be all right now. I won't let either of you be in danger anymore." Justin seemed to sense something. Panic flickered in his eyes. "Grace, what are you planning to do?" Grace looked at him with heartbreaking tenderness. "I've already agreed to marry that stranger. I'll do as the Ramseys wish. Become someone else's wife. As long as I can watch you from afar, and you both live in peace, I'll accept it." That night, I collapsed from shock and was rushed to the ER. In my delirium, the words, "that stranger," stabbed through my heart like a knife. Those words tore through me until I felt shredded inside. I curled up on the hospital bed, clutching the medical report so tightly my knuckles turned white. The doctor stood beside me, staring at the test results with a deep frown. "Your condition is very serious. Anemia, malnutrition, gastric disease, and depression." Thanks to the doctor's relentless care, my health gradually improved. Lying in bed, for some reason, I opened Justin's Instagram and scrolled back to that post. It turned out that on the very night I got drunk, Justin's song, "Goodbye My Love," had trended on social media. Later, countless lovers would come to regard that song as a legend. In his final message, Justin had written, "You are my medicine, and my only home. No matter how far apart we are, I vow to walk this road with you to the end." Perhaps it was that very night that Grace made her decision to let go. Separated by thousands of miles, they'd said their goodbyes through nothing but a tiny screen. And I, the fool, had believed that night Grace truly loved me. I forced myself out of bed. My body was still weak, and the doctor had warned me I'd soon need surgery. He told me to rest, not to overthink things. So I decided to put work on hold and use this time to figure out clearly which path I should take next. I wanted to call off the engagement with Grace, but not yet. My research project still needed her cooperation for its final phase. That day, having made up my mind, I dragged my ailing body to the Ramsey estate, intending to probe gently for answers. I never expected that right at the gate I'd overhear a conversation between Lucas Ramsey and Grace. "Grace," the older woman said sharply, "have you forgotten your promise to Logan's grandfather?" Grace stood in the cold wind, her voice indifferent. "I remember. Marry Logan, so you can claim grandfather's inheritance. Lucas Ramsey frowned. It's not just about the Ramseys. Olivia's illness costs $200,000 a month. And that's only the beginning. The Ramsey family's financial chain has already broken. How else do you expect to support her? Grace's lips curled into a bitter, mocking smile. Do I even have a choice? You used Justin's life as leverage against me. What else could I do? Last time, you forced him to jump off a cliff. What's your next move? She paused, then added, voice low but fierce. Mother, you know this well. If Justin dies, I will absolutely not live on alone. Lucas Ramsey trembled with anger. Grace? Grace's tone hardened. Don't lie to me anymore. You know exactly how determined I am. I didn't push the gate open. I just turned quietly and walked back to my car. The cold streetlights outside streamed through the windshield, casting long shadows across my face. I sat there in silence, watching people pass by, smoking one cigarette after another. My family and the Ramseys had been bound by an old agreement. When my grandfather passed, I was still a child. As far back as my memories went, Grace had always been by my side. I adored her. When she was bullied, I secretly stood up for her. When her father punished her by making her kneel all night, I snuck into the kitchen to steal Bowsy for her. And got so badly burned I spent half a month in the hospital. Stories like that? There were too many to count over the years. Truthfully, it wouldn't have mattered if she never returned my feelings. I couldn't stop her from loving someone else. But Grace had chosen to accept my confession. I thought, finally, she'd seen my devotion. I never imagined that everything had carried a price tag all along. When I came back to my senses, I realized my face was soaked with tears. After 10 years, I called my grandfather's lawyer once again. Mr. Oliver, I asked, voice hoarse, why does my grandfather's inheritance only transfer to the Ramseys after I get married? There was a long pause on the line. Then he answered carefully. Before he passed, Mr. James set up a trust fund. The Ramseys only receive the assets. Once Grace marries you, what if I don't get married? Then the entire estate goes directly to you. However, most of the James Group's current shareholders have already aligned themselves with the Ramsey faction. If you want to reclaim your voice in the company, it won't be easy. In other words, this engagement, in the short term, this engagement had to stay intact. At least until I was strong enough to wipe out everyone in that house. I forced myself to eat. Even though my stomach churned violently. Even though I vomited until only bile remained. I still had to make sure I absorbed enough nutrients. Truth was, I wasn't a strong person. This whole process was excruciating. Night after night, I curled up under the covers, clenched my teeth, and pushed myself forward down a path shrouded in darkness. I had to get healthy. Only if I survived could I stand a chance against them. That night, Grace came back. She brought a bouquet, the same kind always sold at the flower shop near our gate. Seeing the instant noodles on my desk, she frowned. You eat this when I'm not home? Where's the housekeeper? She's on leave. Grace fell silent for a moment, then rolled up her sleeves, tied on an apron, and said, go wait outside. Dinner'll be ready soon. The air carried a faint trace of jasmine perfume. Not mine, it clung to her clothes. I pulled out a chair, sat at the dining table, and called into the kitchen. I haven't been feeling well lately. Let's postpone the wedding. Grace's eyelids flickered slightly, but she replied evenly. The Ramseys have never postponed a wedding before. If you're unwell, I'll take you to the hospital. Watching her busy figure in the kitchen, I gave a bitter, forced smile. So this was what it meant to love someone. You could fake it perfectly. For Justin's life, Grace could play the devoted fiancé for me forever. She'd buy the hand-shredded chicken I like, watch my favorite movies with me after dinner, wake up early to gently kiss me first, acting like the perfect wife, attending to my every need without fail. I stared at her face, and hatred surged hotter and hotter inside me. So many times, I'd wanted to slap that fake smile right off her face, just to watch her suffer and disappear. As the wedding date drew closer, canceling the engagement became urgent. My main job was as a lecturer at the same university as Grace. In the lab, we were one of the rare, seamless research pairs. But when it came to the family business, I knew absolutely nothing. Reclaiming control seemed nearly impossible. The learning curve alone was draining every ounce of mental energy I had. Even my grandfather's old aides could only shake their heads helplessly. "Young Master Logan, you truly have no natural talent for business." How ironic. I was exactly like the useless male second lead in those romance novels. There was no way I could build my own business empire overnight. I had to accept one brutal truth. If I wanted to take back the company the Ramseys had been slowly devouring for years, my only option was a reckless, self-destructive move. Kill 1,000 enemies, lose 800 of your own. So, I deliberately accompanied Grace home a few times, casually dropping hints about my eagerness for the wedding. This only made the Ramseys more confident and excited, convinced my grandfather's fortune would soon be theirs. By month's end, the Graces placed a huge bet. Risky market expansion, aggressive bidding for opportunities, and my wedding to Grace became the most talked about event of the year. Just as I thought everything was falling into place, Justin showed up. He completely ignored Grace's warnings, walked straight up to me, and extended his hand with a bright smile. "Nice to finally meet you, young Master Logan. I'm Grace's husband." At that moment, I'd just come out of surgery, my body drenched in cold sweat. But Justin, fearless as ever, blocked my path in the freezing wind and formally declared war. I pulled my coat tighter and replied coldly, "Sorry, but where I come from, the other man doesn't get to call himself a husband." Justin's smile froze. "Young Master Logan, why lie to yourself? Grace and I have a child. She's so repulsed by you, she can't even stand to touch you. I'm allowing you to exist, letting her visit you occasionally. You should be thanking me." My patience snapped. I slapped him hard and laughed bitterly. "Open your eyes. What makes you think you have the right to set terms with me?" Justin shrieked in shock. "You dare hit me?" My fingers clenched until they turned bone white. "Or maybe you just haven't died fast enough?" Justin's body went rigid with fear, then crumpled to the ground, motionless. I leaned down, whispering right into his ear. "It's not that you're allowing Grace to stay with me. It's that you have no choice but to endure it. As long as I want. She'll never see you again. Understand?" Justin's face turned ashen. "Logan, you dare?" I kicked him hard in the stomach, then stormed off to my car, fury burning in my veins. After that encounter, my hands and legs trembled uncontrollably. In over 20 years of life, this was the first time I'd ever been this ruthless. And the feeling? It was absolutely exhilarating. I wasn't worried Justin would tell Grace what happened, because in her eyes, he'd always maintained the image of a gentle, refined man. He loved Grace too much to ever dare let her know he'd deliberately provoke me. For me, right now was a critical moment. I was up for promotion to associate professor. I'd originally planned to return to work after recovering, and never intended to get tangled up with Justin any longer than necessary. A few days later, I got a call from the lab. One of Grace's graduate students was crying on the phone. "Professor Logan, when are you coming back? Our data, it looks like someone sabotaged it." Hearing that, I rushed straight to the lab. On that freezing winter day, the fluorescent hallway lights flickered erratically. Muffled chatter drifted from inside the lab. When I pushed the door open, I saw several students huddled around a few computers, their eyes red and swollen. "Professor Logan, someone tampered with your computer too." A faint trace of jasmine, definitely not from the lab, hung in the air. Grace stepped out from the group of students and asked softly, "What happened?" On the desk, a puddle of spilled milk tea hadn't dried yet. The whole room was in disarray. One student explained to her, "Someone just came looking for you and knocked over milk tea on the desk." It's not just the data, our experimental samples are completely ruined too. The lab had always strictly forbidden food and drinks. Only an outsider would dare do something like this. Just then, A voice came from the doorway, slightly breathless. "Sorry about that, young Master Logan. I accidentally spilled my milk tea. I've gone to buy paper towels for you." "Quick, wipe it up?" Grace's eyes flashed with panic. Clearly, she hadn't expected Justin to show up in front of me like this. What are you doing here? We've known each other for years. Can't I come visit you and catch up?" Seeing his smug grin, I strode straight toward him. Justin feigned regret. "I wasn't careful. I ruined your things, young Master Logan. It wasn't on purpose. Whack. My fist slammed into his face, sending him reeling. "You think destroying critical research data can be fixed with a simple, sorry? 2 million in research grants, gone just like that? Do you even realize your stunt might keep these students from graduating? Not to mention years of my hard work, wiped out in seconds." The entire lab fell into dead silence. Justin clutched his face, about to snap back, but the moment he saw Grace, he instantly shrank into a pitiful, trembling mess. "Young Master Logan, hitting people isn't right, no matter what." I raised my hand again. "Today would be the real surprise if I didn't beat you to death." Grace immediately grabbed my arm and said coolly, "Logan, don't make things harder for him." I turned and met her icy gaze. In that instant, I realized the fragile peace between us was finally crumbling. "Grace, so you're admitting it, then?" Her tone was firm. "I'll compensate you for the loss this time." That day, under Grace's full protection, Justin faced absolutely no consequences. Using her long-standing influence, she brazenly swept the whole incident under the rug. She even paid the 2 million out of her own pocket to clean up his mess. The students could only fume in silence, gathering each day to vent their frustration in hushed, defeated whispers. As for Grace and me, we'd entered full-on Cold War. One afternoon, while I was helping students choose thesis topics, someone came running in, panicked. "Professor Logan, you've been posted online." I immediately pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. The homepage hit me like a punch to the gut. Cruel comments about me flooded the screen. The photo had been taken from a sneaky angle, capturing the exact moment I slapped Justin. Netizens were in an uproar. Justin's alive. Was he forced into this? Who the hell does Logan think he is? Hitting people like that? He steals someone's wife and still acts so entitled? If it were me, I'd hit him back. Sob, Professor Grace, please save Justin. I can't bear to see him suffer anymore. Comments poured in by the second, the hate multiplying exponentially. I'd been cast as the villain of the story. No one cared that 3 years of my research had vanished into thin air, or that countless students now faced delayed, or even failed, graduations because of this disaster. All they cared about was their beloved main couple getting the happy ending they deserved, just like in every romance novel. Eventually, the Justin scandal reached the Ramseys. The next day, after everything blew up, Lucas Ramsey summoned Grace and me for dinner. Right in front of me, she scolded her daughter. "I already threw away all that man's things. You're still keeping them?" Her message was crystal clear. This was the Ramsey family's official stance. Grace froze for a split second, then lowered her eyes and murmured, "I understand." During dinner, Lucas Ramsey was unusually patient with me, even immediately agreeing when I suggested postponing the wedding. I couldn't stand the suffocating atmosphere any longer and stood to leave. Outside, the moonlight was cold and pale. A Ramsey household servant carried a box out the door and accidentally dropped its contents, scattering them across the ground. A few small items rolled to my feet. The servant rushed over, flustered. "Sorry, young Master Logan. Lucas wanted these thrown away." I gently stepped on a vivid blue feather and asked, "Is this Grace's?" "It's a gift Justin gave to Miss Grace." The cold wind blew past. Slowly, I bent down and picked up each tiny item, feeling the familiar, soft texture of the feathers between my fingers. Inside the box were a few autumn pear candies, a small keychain, and a crooked, unsigned letter. "You're saying these are all gifts from Justin?" Yes, sir." Seeing their confused expressions, I suddenly laughed until tears streamed down my face. All these things, they're really Justin's? Because of my cowardice back then. The secret gifts I'd sent Grace had been mistaken for his. But they were mine all along. I didn't even notice when Grace stepped outside. Don't throw them away, put everything in my car. The servant quickly gathered the box and hurried off. I stared into the thick darkness and suddenly spoke. Grace, come celebrate my birthday with me. The wind lifted her hair. Streetlight flickered across her cold face, her expression unreadable, distant. Logan, is this really necessary? Now she didn't even bother hiding it. Her eyes openly showed disgust. I smiled. Of course it is. Grace, I've liked you for 10 years. Because of you, I've done so much. Can't you at least spend one birthday with me? Is that really too much to ask? Grace frowned. Fine. On my birthday. She went with me to the observatory on the city's outskirts. People say that if lovers make a wish together under the stars, they'll be together forever. For years, I'd longed for this night, just for this one moment. Standing beside Grace, gazing up at the star-filled sky, I suddenly realized it wasn't as beautiful as I'd imagined. In fact, it felt rather cold and empty. But the moment I saw Grace uncomfortable, I felt oddly satisfied. I'd suffered for years. What was a little discomfort for her compared to that? Ha ha ha. I snapped a photo and posted it to my social feed. At 10 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was Justin, sending a picture of himself curled up in bed, holding Grace. Judging by her clothes, it must have been taken the day before, after her meeting, when she never came home. Young Master Logan, she's always been mine. Even if you marry her, you'll only be taking care of her on my behalf. Olivia won't be our last child. Want to bet? I glanced at Grace, who was adjusting the telescope to help me find stars, and typed back. Are you sure about that? Grace is right here with me right now. Guess what she's doing? She's enjoying herself quite a bit. A while later, Justin vanished. Then frantically messaged again, demanding to know why Grace wasn't answering her phone. Of course she wasn't, she'd left her phone in the car. Panicked, he sent another provoking message. Olivia's looking for her mom. Please let her come home right away. I pretended not to see it. Almost immediately, a second message followed. Logan, I'm warning you, don't be so cruel. If you dare hide her, just wait for your bad luck to catch up. Olivia is her flesh and blood. She'll never forgive you for this. I turned off my phone, tugged Grace's sleeve, and said lightly, I don't feel like stargazing anymore. Let's do something else. Oh, but there are still a few stars left, right? Go ahead and find them all for me, one by one. By the time we got back to the car, it was nearly midnight. Grace unlocked her phone, and seeing a flood of missed calls, her expression instantly changed. Right in front of me, she dialed back immediately, her voice urgent, unable to hide her worry. Justin, what's wrong? Justin's voice crackled through the speaker, thick with tears. This time, his tone had shifted completely. Grace, I don't know what to do. I'm sorry, Olivia's sick. I messaged Logan 2 hours ago, but he refused to tell you. It's serious, can you come home right away? This was the first time I'd ever seen such raw, unmistakable emotion cross the face of Professor Ramsey. Her dark eyes locked onto me, sharp, furious, blazing. Logan, get out of the car. I smiled. It's 1:30 a.m. You're really going to leave me stranded in the middle of nowhere? Get out, don't make me say it again. Grace threw the words out coldly, opened the door, and invited me out before driving off without a backward glance. I stood in the freezing wind, watching her taillights disappear down the road. Just as I'd expected, Justin's message came through again, this time laced with smug triumph. Got kicked out of the car. Huh? Next time, don't act like you're always right. I made a phone call. Half a minute later, a car pulled up in front of me. Lawyer Oliver rolled down the window. Young Master Logan, get in. I forwarded the entire chat history between Justin and me to Lawyer Oliver, keeping it as evidence. On the way back, Grace sent me a text. This is grown-up business, don't drag children into it. I don't want there to be a next time. My face went cold. Slowly, I typed a reply. Go through your little keepsakes carefully. Inside the leaf of that capsule toy, I hid a ring along with a love letter. And the last line was copied straight from my grandfather's diary. I hope you'll stop touching them. Please give them back to me. I hit send, then powered off my phone and headed straight to my newly purchased apartment. Lawyer Oliver said quietly, "Young Master Logan, it won't be long before we can annul the engagement. But this time, I'm afraid the James family will suffer heavy losses too." I nodded. Better to cut ties cleanly than let the whole family drown with me. In the days that followed, I stepped in for Grace, drafting new research topics for students, applying for grants to support struggling graduate researchers. After years of saving, I still had some money left, enough to help a few students graduate without setbacks. My plan was, once I officially became associate professor, to transfer those students under my name, because Grace was clearly losing interest. Their futures shouldn't become sacrifices for her love triangle. The next day, when I turned my phone back on, I was flooded with missed calls and messages from friends. "Professor Grace's been looking for you like crazy. Where are you?" At that moment, I was in a taxi on my way to the hospital. After days of exhaustion, I'd come down with a severe cold that just wouldn't break. While waiting for my appointment, I scrolled through my phone and realized today was Justin's birthday. Fresh flowers lined the path from the event hall all the way to the lawn. His birthday party was lavish and buzzing with energy. Camera flashes never stopped. Justin stood bathed in spotlight, like a knight descended from heaven. But today, he seemed distracted, his eyes fixed on one spot, his expression heavy with sorrow. Netizens were already buzzing. "Where's the goddess Grace? It's Justin's big day. She's not here. Doesn't she have a fiancé? Don't even mention Logan. Stealing someone's lover. How can you still call him a fiancé? Total bad luck." My doctor's reminder pulled me back to reality. "Young Master Logan, remember your follow-up appointments and take your meds on time." I nodded, "Thank you." As I stepped out of the clinic with my prescription, I bumped into someone. She carried the chill of the wind on her skin. Her voice was hoarse. "Logan, where have you been?" I looked up, straight into Grace's eyes. Instinctively, I took a step back. From her disheveled hair and exhausted eyes, it was clear she'd been searching for me all night. "Don't touch me. Right now, I don't want anything to do with you." Grace suddenly grabbed my wrist, her eyes red-rimmed, voice trembling. "Logan, why? Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I yanked my arm away coldly. "Grace, do you think we're playing house? I've been perfectly healthy for a long time." Grace froze, confusion flickering across her usually composed face. Her hands shook as she reached for the photo in my hand. Stammering, "Logan, I cut her off, expressionless. I still held onto a little hope. But ever since the day I saw you and Justin together in that hospital, I've been completely done." Grace went pale. I gave a bitter laugh, grabbed her by the hair, and slammed her against the wall. "Do you even know how much this illness hurts? So stay the hell away from me. Understood?" Grace crumpled to the ground, as if all her strength had vanished. I handed her a few support request forms. "Oh, I forgot to mention, I've just been promoted to associate professor. If possible, I'd like you to transfer some of your students to me. Think it over, I'll be home tonight." With that, I turned and walked away without looking back. Truth was, given the Ramseys' current financial state, if I called off the engagement now, their entire empire would collapse overnight. But I still had one last thing to do. Bring all of Grace's students under my wing. That night, Grace sat outside my building for hours. I watched from the window as she huddled on the ground, crying. Yet her eyes stayed fixed ahead, as if making some final, fateful decision. When she finally came back inside, her body was ice cold. She pulled me to the dining table and wrapped her arms tightly around me. "Logan, I agreed to all your demands. But you can't leave me." I'd forgotten. Grace had once slit her wrists for Justin. Now, to keep me, she'd stop at nothing. She refused to sign the student transfer forms. That night, it didn't take much effort. I just had to get her thoroughly drunk. I forced her to sign. Grace slumped against the sofa, half asleep, still murmuring, "Logan, from now on, I'll treat you well." No one else will ever be allowed near you again." How desperately sincere she sounded. If this were the old Logan, I might have smiled happily long ago. But now, all I wanted was to get as far away as possible from this tangled mess of a life. I took the signed form and left that very night. The next day, the Ramsey family received the official notice terminating our engagement. On the very day Grace and I were supposed to register our marriage, I vanished without a trace. My phone rang. It was Grace. "Logan, where are you?" Silence on the other end, except for her faint, shaky breathing. I gently ran my fingers over the inheritance documents and replied, "Grace, I've thought it through. I don't want to live a decent life with you anymore. That's all." Grace froze for a moment, then panicked. "Logan, where are you? Tell me, I'll come find you." I hung up. With lawyer Oliver by my side, I signed the inheritance papers. From that moment on, my grandfather's company, and all his assets, belonged to me. Of course, after purging untrustworthy staff, and cutting all ties with the Ramseys, the company had taken a heavy financial hit. My grandfather's loyal aides could only give wry smiles. "Young Master Logan, from today on, you'll have to shoulder this entire company with everything you've got." At 28, I finally felt as if I'd broken free from some invisible chain. Stepping into a life that was truly mine, hard, ordinary, but real. As lawyer Oliver saw me out the door, he shook my hand and said, "Wishing you great success, young Master Logan." My eyes stung. I smiled. "Thank you, sir." Without their once powerful financial backing, the Ramseys quickly sank into mounting debt. They grew cautious in everything they did, terrified of giving anyone leverage against them. Grace changed drastically. She was no longer the radiant Professor Grace of old. She started skipping classes frequently, her face drawn and haggard, as if she were ill. One day, she called me over. "Logan, you've gotten even thinner." At the time, I'd just recovered from a severe bout of flu, on top of lingering mild depression. Not something one winter could cure. I took a deep breath. "All thanks to you, Professor Grace. Loving you nearly cost me my life. I'm genuinely glad we stopped here." Grace's face twisted in pain. "Logan, you can't be this cruel." I reminded her coldly. "You have a child now. Have some decency. Little Olivia is innocent." That night, Justin called me. "What did you say to Grace? Why won't she even look at me anymore?" I answered slowly. "Justin, is it really that fun? Stealing someone else's credit?" The line went quiet for a beat, then came a wary reply. "What are you talking about?" I gave a dry laugh. "That year, I was hospitalized. You took that chance to swoop in and claim all the credit. Don't tell me you've forgotten." Before he could respond, I added coldly, "If you ever dare call me again, I'll bring reporters straight to your door and have a very public chat about this." That warning kept Justin quiet for a long time. But during the New Year holiday, a photo suddenly exploded across trending feeds. In it, at the observatory, Grace had Justin pinned against the railing, kissing him fiercely. Bathed in clear moonlight, two beautiful souls, reunited. The image, dripping with couple energy, shot straight to #1 on the hot search chart. Fans sighed in relief. Logan's finally gone. Is this their official confirmation? I'm dead. I ship them so hard. Please, Grace, come live in my phone. After years apart, the star-crossed lovers had reunited, bringing a little late-year joy to the internet. The topic stayed trending for days. Some students quietly complained, "I don't get Professor Grace. That Justin guy is clearly no good." But whatever, our luck's not the one being tested here. Near year's end, I moved into my new place and invited my students over for dinner. The ones who'd once been struggling and worn down now looked bright and hopeful. "Professor Logan, thank you for everything. Because of you, I feel like I can keep going for a few more years." "Kid, don't tell me you don't want to graduate anymore? Professor Logan still has to push through too. I want to do my PhD with you." Steam rose from the hot dishes, warm light bathed the room, and laughter filled the air of this little reunion. My eyes stung. This was probably the liveliest, warmest New Year's I'd had since my grandfather passed. In previous years, Grace was always either working late or away on business trips. Now that I was sitting in that very position myself, I finally understood. Turns out, on New Year's Eve, the university never actually required anyone to work. It had just been an excuse all along. This year, heavy snow made traveling home nearly impossible, so a few students stayed over at my place. After midnight, the house inevitably grew lively and full of warmth. Amid all that, Justin couldn't resist texting me again. "Logan, thanks for giving me back the perfect her. I thought about it a lot. Honestly, she might not have liked me because of what happened back then at all. And he really didn't need to push her so hard." I casually bit into an apple and replied with just one word. Then added, "Should I go ahead and call Professor Grace, then?" He immediately blew up. "Can you be any pettier?" I chuckled. "Not as much as you." Grace and Justin's first real fight happened at the end of February. Justin had encouraged little Olivia to throw away Grace's external hard drive, which directly caused a catastrophic, irreparable gap in that year's key experiment. The entire institute issued a formal reprimand, and Grace even lost her eligibility to supervise new graduate students. After causing the mess, Olivia timidly whispered, "It had Uncle Logan's name on it." The students, who'd already endured two major disasters back to back, finally snapped. They stepped forward to expose the truth themselves, and even submitted a joint petition demanding Grace's professorship be revoked. Fans who'd once worshipped her as a goddess were now being fiercely scolded by angry students. Drop the goddess act. Is Justin really that dumb? 6 months ago, she sabotaged Logan's samples. Now she's getting a child to destroy data? Did her parents forget to give her a brain? And this isn't even the first time. Someone even dug up the incident from 6 months prior. At the top of the comments, still flooded with likes, were old posts insulting me. One furious user wrote, "I commented back then saying Justin was the problem. But no one believed me, they all went after Logan instead. Did you really think we grad students don't know how to use the internet? You're all just love-struck idiots." Another added, "So last time they ruined Logan's experiment, and people cheered? Why didn't Logan say anything back then?" A grad student explained, "We wanted to report it, but Professor Logan wouldn't let us. He'd rather be falsely accused than let us ruin our own futures. In academia, unless you're backed into a corner, no one dares accuse their own advisor. I didn't want those kids, so passionate about research, to get dragged into the media circus too early, forced to gamble their entire careers for a sliver of justice." Under the pressure of online outrage, Justin quickly crumbled. That day, I watched with my own eyes as he and Grace argued fiercely in her office. "Olivia is your daughter. She just didn't want you involved with Logan. What's wrong with that?" Grace replied coldly, "What does this have to do with Logan? That data was mine. You don't know pain until it lands on your own head." Just like before, she could casually spend $2 million to buy off my hard work. But she couldn't bear to see her own scientific achievements destroyed. That hard drive was a gift I'd given Grace years ago, engraved with my name. All her research data had been stored on it for years. Impossible to replace or restructure quickly. But Justin didn't understand any of that. In the end, they broke up bitterly. As he left, Justin shot me a resentful glare and threw out a provocation. "No matter what Olivia and I do, Grace will always forgive me. So don't get cocky." I looked up from a stack of theses and said calmly, "Justin, has your quality of life really dropped this much? Wearing the same outfit over and over, out of money already?" That hit Justin's most sensitive nerve. He'd once made a huge scene about jumping off a cliff, publicly claiming the Ramseys forced him. But in truth, it was a staged death meant to sabotage my engagement. During the stunt, though, he'd snagged his throat on a tree branch, suffering serious vocal cord damage that ended his singing career for good. And now, with the Ramsey empire collapsed, Grace's income alone couldn't possibly support their lifestyle. A few days later, rumors spread online that Justin was preparing for a comeback. That same day, Grace's voice echoed down the hallway as she called him. "Can you just stop causing trouble? Your vocal cords can't heal." What's so bad about staying home and taking care of Olivia? Why do you keep competing with Logan? Justin's tone suddenly turned sharp. Grace, are you ashamed of me now that I'm disabled? If you dare go back to Logan, I'll die right in front of you. When Grace hung up, she saw me standing right outside her door. I gave a polite smile. I'm here to pick up some documents for my students. By now, all her former students had officially transferred under my supervision, and my responsibilities had grown accordingly. Grace's eyes flickered with pain. Thank you for all your trouble. I took the files and turned to leave without hesitation. At the door, she suddenly called out, Logan. I turned, puzzled. Her expression was complex as she said slowly, I have cancer. I'm afraid I don't have much time left. I nodded calmly. I've been pretty tight on cash lately. Can't lend you any, sorry. But as I walked away, realizing how cold that sounded, I turned back and added, maybe you could ask someone else? Yet, seeing Grace's face, now completely drained of color, I simply nodded and said, never mind, I hope you recover soon. Justin's singing show was heavily promoted, so when he tumbled off the stage mid-performance to the blare of dramatic music, the incident instantly went viral. His vocal cords were completely destroyed. He'd never grace the stage again for the rest of his life. From that point on, Justin's mental state visibly deteriorated. At the end of March, his hit song, Goodbye My Love, was suddenly exposed as plagiarized. A former music competition contestant, who'd failed years ago, released her own submission, which was nearly identical to Justin's song, except hers had been created 6 months earlier. Back then, Justin had been a judge at that very competition. My music professor told me my performance was outstanding, that I was guaranteed to place well. But that same day, I got the rejection notice. After all these years, I finally have the courage to ask, how can you sleep at night, stealing someone else's work? The revelation sparked immediate outrage, with waves of condemnation flooding social media. First, Grace had indulged her husband and child in sabotaging research data. Now, Justin had stolen a student's original composition. Clearly, neither of them had ever respected our generation. With people like this in charge, how can students ever get a fair shot? Is there any former student of Professor Grace willing to speak the truth? Don't disgrace us, thank you. We've all transferred to Professor Logan's supervision. He's not only paid out of pocket for our living stipends, but also helped us develop thesis topics and ensured we could graduate. Oh, and by the way, Professor Logan got seriously ill because of Grace's mess. Was bedridden for half a year, yet still worked through his illness. The screenshots lawyer Oliver had helped me collect finally found their purpose. Coupled with the exposure of Justin's taunting messages, netizens finally woke up. Back then, everyone was obsessed with the Grace-Justin ship. They all accused Logan of butting in, but he was her actual fiancé. Did you even know the James family has been in decline for years? Logan couldn't possibly have forced Grace to marry him. She had to agree willingly. The truth is, the Ramseys never respected Justin, so they pushed Grace to hurt Logan instead. And let's not forget, Grace even hid Logan and had a child with Justin behind his back. Disgusting. Online backlash grew fiercer by the hour, and Justin finally panicked. He tried every excuse imaginable, but the public only shoved his face deeper into the mud. All the cruel words once hurled at me were now raining down on him. I called the company. The person on the line said, "Don't worry, sir, the payment has already been sent to the contestant. She asked me to thank you for helping her reclaim justice. Young Master Logan, would you like to keep buying trending spots?" I thought for a moment. No, let her use the rest of the money to build a better life. Outside the window, all the leaves had fallen. The grating screech of a dull saw cutting wood echoed under the cold winter sky. Grace had already vacated the lab. Years' worth of awards and certificates once pinned to the walls were gone, leaving only bare, white plaster. Soon, my name would replace hers. I returned to her the gifts she'd once given me, including the watch I'd received when I first joined the lab. Grace gently traced the now faded diamond and whispered, "Logan, maybe I was wrong all along. He wasn't the person I thought he was. I stood silently, saying nothing. She lowered her head, her lips bitter with regret. How did he become like this? Greedy, cruel, unrepentant? Logan, if only I'd chosen to walk that path with you back then. Grace, I cut in sharply. Did you ever even ask for my opinion? She froze. I went on. I never wanted to be someone else's backup plan. Just because you couldn't walk your own path doesn't mean you get to drag me back as your escape route. In the end, the greedy and cruel one is you. Logan, let's go. A lazy voice called to me from across the street. Grace stiffened slightly, then turned to see a woman leaning against a car, standing in the wind, smiling faintly at me with knowing eyes. I nodded. Next time, don't bring your problems to me. I have a girlfriend now. The wind howled. Grace's belated confession echoed behind me. Logan, I love you. My steps faltered, but I kept my back turned and let out a laugh. Is your love really that precious? I had no energy left for words. I walked around the front of the car and got in. Evelyn closed the door for me, gave Grace a cool, perfunctory nod, then drove us away. On the way home, I said casually, "Thank you, Evelyn, for helping me stage this little performance." She sat in the passenger seat, smiling indifferently. Well then, either pay me my fee, or treat me to dinner. In truth, Evelyn's life had been even harder than mine. Her family's fortune had collapsed. Business failures left her drowning in debt, tens of millions, and she'd only just finished paying it all off earlier this year. Recently, she'd finally earned a decent sum, enough to set aside a little for security. As for me, at least I'd built some reputation in academia. I'd taken on a few students. They gave me headaches sometimes, but they were showing real progress. The company, it swung between losses and profits, but we were scraping by. All these years, my business instincts remained as weak as ever. But gazing out the window at the neon lights streaming past under the night sky, I felt a quiet, ordinary kind of happiness, as if I'd finally found peace in this mundane world. Just as Evelyn often told me, maybe we're just ordinary people, but ordinary people can be happy too. In the blink of an eye, another half-year slipped by. My students began publishing research, and their graduations were going smoothly. On the day of the autumn equinox, Evelyn and a few of my students threw a big celebration in Midland, even sending invitations to a handful of close friends. That very morning, Justin stormed into the party carrying a can of gasoline, wildly splashing its pungent fumes everywhere. "It's all your fault, you stole everything from me." His eyes burned with madness and hatred as he glared at me. "Ha ha ha, Logan, why do you get to be happy while I suffer? Just die already." Gasoline soaked half the venue, nearly destroying it. By then, Grace was already battling cancer. Justin was buried in debt. And Olivia, raised in chaos, had grown defiant and bitter, often lashing out at Justin for daring to come back alive. If Grace died, the entire Ramsey fortune would slip from Justin's grasp. Combined with Grace's growing coldness, he'd completely lost his mind. When Grace rushed in, Justin had already flicked his lighter. Flames erupted across the gasoline-slicked floor, engulfing everything in an instant. Panic erupted, guests screamed and fled. I reacted fast. The moment he burst in, I yanked Evelyn into a corner. I watched as Justin vanished into the inferno. Grace, drenched in gasoline, stood amid the roaring flames. Her eyes locked on mine with finality. In that moment, it was impossible to tell whether her gaze held pain, regret, or resignation. From behind, Justin wrapped his arms tightly around her, and the fire consumed them both. The face that had haunted my dreams for years finally dissolved into the endless blaze. Evelyn and I escaped through the back door. Once outside, I asked anxiously, "Are you hurt?" Meeting her trembling eyes, I realized only then how terrified she'd been. I shook my head. "It's okay. Everyone got out in time, no injuries. Only a small part of my shirt got burned." She clung to me, voice shaking. "I'm so relieved, I thought my nightmare had come true." "Nightmare?" I asked. "I once dreamed you married Grace. Everyone around you was scheming." The Ramseys, Justin, Olivia, and at 28, just like now, you died in a sea of fire. I looked up at the sky, glowing red from the flames. That would be a terrifying dream. But luckily, it was just a dream. Aside from Grace and Justin, no one else was hurt. After their deaths, the truth of their past finally came to light. Netizens commented bitterly, "I used to think this was some high society romance novel. Turns out it really was class disparity, they couldn't be together." Grace was forced to marry to save Justin's life. She once wanted to live with Logan. But when Justin faked his suicide, she slashed her wrists to die with him. Wow, sounds so tragically devoted. But honestly, let Logan go already. He must have pissed off 8 lifetimes of karma to get tangled in their mess. At least the ending finally returned to normal. Late autumn, Evelyn and I visited the hillside beyond the city. Cold wind swept through the dry grass, rustling like whispers across the slopes. Among the rows of graves, Grace and Justin's tombstones stood side by side. Evelyn sighed. "That little girl, Olivia, she's gone too. From her illness. It's truly cruel. If you can't raise a child, why bring them into this world at all?" Before their graves, I placed a bouquet, then tossed an old voice recorder and my old phone into a small fire. The wind blew. Burnt circuitry crackled softly in the ashes. That recorder held Evelyn's voice, revealing how Grace had exposed Justin's selfishness and cruelty. And that phone? The one I'd used to text Justin. That night, Grace had poured her heart out to me. I'd sent her entire confession to Justin, and in return, received only increasingly vicious curses. My very existence had long become his obsession, his torment. Facing Evelyn's thoughtful gaze, I said seriously, "I agree with you. Maybe we were always just side characters. What happened in your dream should have been my ending too." After all, back then, the online hate directed at me had been utterly irrational, bordering on extreme. As if, just because Grace and Justin reunited, everyone else had to sacrifice themselves without question. The fire flared. Plastic casings popped in the embers. I sat down, stamping out the last of the ashes. To survive a story that never favored you, there's only one way. Kill the main character. Evelyn finished the sentence for me. The wind drifted silently through the space between us. I laughed. Cut the Ramseys off at the root. Shape Justin's faith in Grace. Drive them into deeper conflict through their own arguments, until they destroy each other. And then, God himself would abandon the protagonist. You and Justin, how did you even know each other? What was your real connection? Standing before their graves, I poured a cup of wine onto the earth. The wind rose again. "Let's go home," I said. We walked shoulder to shoulder down the rugged mountain path. All the way, one question echoed in my mind. What role were you meant to play? Evelyn glanced at me and answered softly. Maybe I was just someone who loved the side character for years. Loved him, but could never have him. My future was only ever to clean up his mess. A pitiful traveler. Nothing more than background cast. I froze. Something stirred deep in my memory, but I couldn't quite grasp it. Evelyn relaxed her brow and gave a faint smile. It's okay. Background characters aren't meant to be remembered. Maybe God never even wrote us in. The wind swept through the treetops, and dry leaves across the mountains sang a clear, rustling song. Evelyn's voice floated near, then far. Logan, I'm so glad you're still alive. Who knows, in some unseen place, you might already be the main character in another story. I smiled gently. Then may God be generous. Let this story end right here. In this summer. For the road ahead, I want to live as an ordinary person, and walk it on my own. Evelyn's bright laughter carried away on the wind. If God hears that, he'll probably agree. After that, Evelyn and I grew closer. By year's end, we got married. Ordinary people only need to find happiness with another ordinary person, and that's enough. Maybe God really did bless us to meet and to love.